8 months ago, I came down from Glasgow to London to cover the trial of the century, the charge of phone hacking illegally against Andy Coulson, Rebecca Brooks and others. To give you an idea of how long this trial seems to have went on, when we first came down, the building you can see behind me was a hole in the ground, and look at it now. Now we know that many readers of the Drum have been following the case, whether through our reports, through newspapers, television or the social media coverage. So we thought it'd be a great idea to get together some of the journalists who have been covering the case and get their views, not just on the trial itself, but also on the media coverage that it's caused. One strange thing about this case is that it's the press reporting on misdeeds of other sections of the press. That makes it a bit self-conscious at times. So has it been done to a high enough standard?
Well, the weird thing from my point of view is I spent something like 3 years trying to dig out this story for The Guardian, and with a few noble exceptions, the rest of the Fleet Street wouldn't cover it for various rather nasty reasons. And yet now that we've got to this stage, they're piling in huge numbers to pick up the leftovers.
I think in terms of the media coverage, it's been exceptional really. There have been no complaints from the judge about our conduct, the nature of our reporting, the content of our reporting. Some complaints from some of the legal teams, but I think that's to be expected. It's been accurate, it's been exceptionally quick at times, and certainly from our point of view, we've done a lot of it. Dozens of separate TV reports, a whole host of online content and radio stuff as well.
I've thought that the media reporting of all of this has been really consistent. It's not been biased in the very least. Obviously, there's been a big pack that's been after this case, and you know, it's been really responsive to every twist and turn. And it seems like the public's really eating it up as well. There's just a ferocious interest in the case.
Media coverage actually has been excellent, and the level of knowledge of the media has been, I think, exceptional. I think on the number of occasions where the judge has simply turned to the actual press benches and asked them, how can I help you, what do you think? I think the knowledge has been huge, and I've been in this court a large number of years, and I thought that the level of expertise, what was required, the detailed knowledge of large parts of the law, not just criminal law, but other parts, exceptional. And I think actually the coverage in the UK probably showed that.
The mainstream media coverage of the trial has obviously been quite muted, mainly because there are massive restrictions on the trial, and people are afraid, I think, generally of reporting the media are afraid of reporting themselves to a certain extent.
Because of rulings by the judge, this trial has been covered in a way no other trial ever has been. There's been live tweeting from the court and blogging. This is a variety of public responses in return, but is it really a revolution or just a bit of a gimmick?
I think this is by far the most interesting case I've ever seen of social media at work, particularly when it comes to legal reporting. With the almost minute by minute, second by second updates from the court, it's like you've got a court report straight into your living room. And I think it's really changed everybody's perception of how reporting should be, from the media side to the consumers of the media side. You've got reporters who are following the tweets, you've got the whole world following these tweets. But I think it's been fantastic. I think it's been, particularly in a case that's had been so important on so many different levels for the public and for politicians in Britain and all over the world who are really interested in this case. It's just been a fantastic extra element to reporting.
Obviously, being a private eye journalist, I'm obliged to take the company line that new media and digital and Twitter and all this stuff is complete nonsense. Actually, I think it's been fantastically useful and really interesting the way it's been used in this trial. It's been fascinating to see the number of people who are following it who aren't necessarily kind of mainstream newspaper readers and wouldn't follow a criminal trial this closely.
It's certainly the first time I've ever experienced live tweeting from a trial before, and I think it's probably changed court reporting for the better. To have such extensive reporting, thousands of words committed to the social media sphere is absolutely amazing. I think it's changed court reporting forever.
I think in terms of social media, this has been a watershed really. I mean, this whole trial from the very beginning, and I think not many people expected this at all, has been reported minute by minute on social media, and that has led the way. That's where the first reporting of every part of this trial, good and bad, has been reported online, on Twitter, and then much more broadly, I come out here and talk about it on the TV or the radio. Sometimes that seems like it's quite a lot later, but I've been tweeting a lot, and in terms of the reaction to that and where people are getting their news from, I think it's been a very significant moment.
I mean, I guess there's been an enormous amount of tweeting and social media coverage on this trial, which is quite unusual. Whether it actually makes a difference to what's said and what's heard, I'm not so sure, because the mainstream news coverage has been so huge. What's sad is that you've got a huge building here with something like 40 courts in it, and the other 39 are being ignored. There's all sorts of good stuff going on. And because newspapers have cut their funding so much, those trials are no longer being covered. But the tweeters and the social media guys aren't in there either. They're just like invisible justice.
I think live tweeting a trial like this has had an impact because, unlike cameras, we don't have cameras in our court. And the thing about cameras is they only catch the emotional moments. But live tweeting, you get the drama, the pace. When I tweet more, you know there's a lot of questions coming. And you also get evidence which is searchable. I think that's crucial. So my tweets are compiled every day on the blog, and people can go back, compare evidence. So it's both evidential and dramatic.
There's been many memorable and sometimes even funny elements in this trial. We asked the journalists what stuck in their minds.
I think in terms of funny moments, Mr. Justice Saunders is quite a funny man, the trial judge. He's human, he's real. I think the funniest moment, really, was probably the Queen's nuts. That came before Christmas. Revelations about the Queen and how she likes certain types of nuts. She thought the police were stealing them at Buckingham Palace. There have been quite a lot of light moments, but then at the other end of the scale, towards the end of the trial, we saw the page from Glenn Mulcair's book, dated 10th of April 2002. You could see his tasking in terms of hacking Millie Dowler, and that brings it all home, really.
There was a really peculiar moment actually when Rebecca Brooks was being cross-examined for her liberty, and the other defendants are sitting in the dock, all tapping away on their laptop computers, taking notes, including her husband Charlie. But it turned out he wasn't taking notes. He was going live to the racing at Cheltenham, which was quite weird since his wife's liberty was at stake.
I think the most memorable part of all of this for me came in the very, very early days, when it was clear that all of the people who'd been following all of the legal argument leading up to the trial knew what was going to drop potentially in the first few days about the Rebecca Brooks and Andy Coulson affair. And so I was seated among many journalists who were just itching. They had their fingers waiting to tweet and waiting to report and rush out there and report this live as soon as it had been said in front of the jury. And apart from anything else, that was just a particularly funny moment for me personally to watch that break and the sense of anticipation that was rising in the room.
Like the rest of the journalists in this film, my time here at the Old Bailey is coming to an end. I'm going to take a break for the while. If you want to get hold of me, leave a voicemail.